Hello guys, I take care of myself and came back. Okay. I think we were fighting. Zoyu, what do you want? No, what can you offer me? Yeah, it's me.
では力を貸してくれて感謝する。この機会に礼を言わせてくれ。気を使わせてしまったか。
No.
少し話してもいいだろうか。今の私の気持ちを正直に伝えたいのだ。なら少々時をもらおう。私は以前から孫家と縁が深い。特に孫作とは幼なじみであり、親友と言っていいと自負している。少年の彼がとんでもない高さの木に登って落ち、民家の石塀を派手に破壊した時、座学の教師から逃げ出した彼が山に迷い込み、発見した折には巨大なイノシシと決闘の最中だった時、見たこともないキノコを止めても効かずに食べ、油汗を流してうまかったと言っている時、彼の類いまれな行動力によって生じる危機に私はいつも対処してきた。
Sounds like a real asshole.
それは違うな。私にとっても貴重な経験だったと思っている。おかげで考えられないような不測の事態にも年の割には対応できるつもりでいた。そして先日、私は孫作と共に自信を持って初戦に臨んだのだが、戦の内容は君も知るところだ。戦場で自由になった孫作は予測を超えていた。誰も止められず、誰も追いつけないほどに。
I wonder what you'll do next.
そうなんだ。だが皆大変だろうと同情しようとする。好きで親友のそばにいるのは私なのだが、私はその孫作を止めるのではなく生かすため、孫悟の軍師になるつもりだ。もし君が先の戦で私たちを好ましく思ってくれたなら、これからも力を貸してほしい。それと君個人にも興味がある。いずれその身の上についても聞かせてくれ。君との縁も切っても切れないものになりそうだ。また会おう。
帝府様に叱咤され、郊外様に。
No, you won't give me any mission? Okay.
俺らも孫家の一員だ。頑張ろうぜ。
帝府様に叱咤され。
I can talk to Elder. Good. It's far better than No. Okay, let's go and fight, destroy them. By taking Fan Castle, we have advanced deeper into Jing Province. Liu Biao's stronghold Xiangyang is now a stone's throw away. If we can bring down Liu Biao in the common battle and capture Xiaoyang, the province will be ours. We will use the same formation as before with Lord Sun Jian as commander and Sun Jie leading the attack. Now, the enemy is currently fortifying themselves, breaking through their every defense to attack their stronghold will take time. And that time is Yuan could use to come after Seal. Our plan Xiangyang therefore focus on concentrated attack at a single point to penetrate their defenses. Your performance in the battle for Fan Yun was impressive. To maintain that momentum, Say will once again lead the main force. Right, I'll carve out the path to victory. And I would like to ask you, Lord Sun Jian, to lead separate force and push the entire front line forward. By coordinating our movement and breaking through their defenses, we will make Xiangyang ours. Make no mistake, this will be easy. Liu Biao formidable, and this is his domain. But we have the advantage here. We will overwhelm the enemy and defeat them in one decisive blow. That's right. I will accompany Lord Sun Jian, Dorat. I want you to support the main force. Son Yu and the princess will also be there to assist Lord Sunja. I trust you to do what you think is best. Okay, I don't have a choice but to go with them. You guys are dumb. Okay, for now I will use sword. Nerede do you think?
敵将 外なんとかなるものだな。おお、来てくれたか。
No, I did not come.
伝令孫作様いずこ殿が孫権様がお亡くなりに。敵将酵素の罠にかかったと。原田孫作。
I will not allow him to die.
これより劉氷の本拠城陽を攻め取る。勇ましき虎たちよ、破撃双牙を震え威勢をもって圧倒し勝利へ押し進まん。城陽までの道、俺が切り開く。みんな俺に続け。自分は策たちに任せて問題はない。俺たちはここから戦線を押し上げる。承知。炎の先にとは無兵の手を思い出しましたか。敵将討ち取る。ちょうどいい。我が知略試させてもらおうか。集中。敵将討ち取った。
Let's hurry and save him.
敵将討ち取った。これでいい。多分これでしまいだ。限界だ。相当の暴れ打ちと。これ以上この地で好き勝手はさせんぞ。矢を雨と打ち下ろし奴らを狩り尽くすのだ。今の弓で撃て。矢が尽きるまで撃ちまくれ。撃ち取った。仕掛けよう。さすがにこれはまずい。隠れる場所はねえ。
Can't continue to move forward.
まさに猛虎。
Okay. Uh, yeah. I need to be fast, right?
お前を本当に尊敬する。優れた奴、民、大将の死。お前が望んで得られる全てのやつ。苦しいほど、妬ましいほどはないか。目の前から消えてほしいのではないか。これは一体皆ひるむな。恐れず進め。矢が飛び来るのとに敵がいるはずだ。何という胆力か。このままでは押し負けるかもしれん。両校、弓兵の指揮は任せた。俺は増援を呼び込み、孫権の息の根を止める。解き放たん。うんち取ったり。主兵は最小限とし、他の者は孫権を攻めよう。奴はここで必ず打ち果たさねばならん。進軍を始める。集中。
Okay, I need. This is not enough. I need this.
騙されてどうする。元へ急がねばならんという。ここだ。危ない。すべて見よ。防げ。ここまで来れば襄陽は目の前だ。勢いのままに攻め込んで流氷を倒すぞ。これでいくのは親父だな。襄陽の城で待ってるぜ。なかなか手強い。力の先にこの程度でとはかれんぞ。すまんか。まだ生きているとは。夏を使っても孫権を撃て。ここだ。殿、ご無事ですか。ここだ。
Oh, I can't win fast enough.
存外なんとかなるものだな。おお、来てくれたか。
伝令孫作様いずこ。殿が孫権様がお亡くなりに。敵将、王祖の罠にかかったと。
No, no. If it goes like this, I need to level up more. I want to save him, that's all. I'll go do other missions or other shit things to level up and I will save him.
俺らも孫家の一員だ。頑張ろうぜ。
東卓の後釜をめぐってまた
都の焼け跡ではたまに
待ちやがれ。本大将に何の用だ。怪しいやつを通すわけにはいかねえな。
You don't remember me?
おめえ洛陽の時の。なんだおいおい、随分と久しぶりじゃねえか。悪い悪い、まさかこんなところでおめえと会うだなんて思ってもみなかったからよ。あの頃はまだ長幕殿のところにいたっけな。ずっと昔のことみたいだぜ。天意、早く通してやれ。そいつは猛徳の客人だ。おっと、そうだったんだ。さあ、
まずは要件から伝えよう。今再び黄金との戦いに手を。
ああ、しぶとい連中もいるようでな。
聴覚はとっくに死んじまったってのによくもまあ抵抗を続けられるもんだぜ。
敵は清州に根を張った黄金の残党。今まさにこの遠州で略奪を働かんとしている。私は遠州の僕としてこの地を。
そうも曹操殿がこの地の僕となれたのは先のよって立つ地盤を得るには好都合でしたが。
まったくだぜ。あいつらに攻め入ってこられたら遠州の土地が丸々ダメになっちまう。何しろ連中兵糧の用意もしないでほとんど略奪で賄ってるらしいしな。
戦乱と貧困がゆえに田畑を手放し、そのありようは
手段を選ばん厄介な敵だ。民の寄せ集めとは以前戦った黄金と同じだとは思わんことだ。
この地を狙う輩は多い。
おっ、へい。
曹操軍の躍進ぶりは今や誰も。
ではでは。
The enemy are yellow turban remnants who drifted in from King Province. We must eliminate them and to keep Yan Province safe. There is no show, they have no clear leader. Because they lack a commander, we will need to take them out one by one until their morale diminishes. Unlike them, we have a leader. All of us will be led by Lord Cha Cha himself. I request that all of you perform your duties well so that Yan may avoid losing yet another governor. Cha Cha has been provided protection and we also plan to enlist Dariat's help, reassuring unity. Now let's move on to his own plan. The enemy appears to have split into three larger groups. Each one of is made of large number of troops and highly motivated ones at that. Based on their numbers, the momentum makes a furious assault defense will be okay. However, staying purely on defensive will be a waste of time. We will use the terrain to our advantage and seek an opportunity to counterattack. And to that we have two critical locations: high ground northwest and the forest to the east. By controlling these points, we can launch a large-scale attack on the enemy routes. They will be thrown into mayhem, and that will be our moment to strike decisive blow. I will personally head towards the high ground and request that Lord Xiaoyun handle the forest. You really have thought everything very well. I'll take care of it. And that's entirely of our plan. I hope that we can all perform our assigned duties.
行くぞ。
うん
敵は乱世に生まれ、戦に育まれた精鋭だ。元は民などと侮るな。
新しい演習力だね。前の習得と同じく返り討ちにしてやろう。皆で助け合い、いつの敵を圧倒するぞ。俺たちの団結を見せてやれ。敵将、
その勝敗は数のみで決するものではない。周を尽くし、数の劣勢を覆すぞ。
我らに力を。今ここに武士の兵を使わすたまえ。
これは困りました。切っても通常に煽る予定。
敵将、討ち取った。
Man, this is too slow.
制すれば取れる手も広がるというここからの功績は攻撃でしょうね。
Gel. I'll take a little break. Evet, non-watch izleyeceğim. Hello guys, let's continue. Okay. Could we attack? Okay, let's attack. I don't want to lose any more time. So
体勢は整ったな。皆俺に続け。
they ignored you, so I will also do that.
みんな飢えて死ぬ。幼い子も年老いた親もみんなだ。だから俺たちは戦い奪う。ただ生きるために。人として生きる。私 将俺たちはただ増えてるだけなんだ。なあ助けてくれよ。もう嫌だよ。
集中ここに来るんだ。この三猛毒が
助けてくれるのか。
かかれ。おっと敵将撃ち取る。危ない。おっと危ない。いい程度防げる。終わらせよう。全て出し切る。
ありえねえ。
敵将撃ち取る。危ない。仕掛けよう。
俺たちが倒れても
これで
親同士がまた武器を取る。何も終わらねえ。乱れた世に人が生きる限り。
頼む。我らをどうする。
そう答えをせお前たちの処遇を決める前に
決まっておろう。好んで戦いに出る者など誰もおらぬわ。だが生きるために戦い、
身勝手な。
病米ごと最初に我らから奪っていったのは他でもない。
乱世において誰しもが奪わねば生きられぬ黄金の精兵たちよ。
望む
応面はせぬ。だが初段も
次のよ。
奪い奪われることでなく作り守り与えること。見てみたいのならば共に来い。お前それが聴覚。
ここが随分整然とした街並みですね。とても100万黄金の残党を取り込み清州兵と名付けて組織した。清州兵の本分は戦闘ですが、兵士には訓練の傍ら農耕に従事する。理屈は単純ですが途方もない数の民が相手です。
家屋の修繕、土地のこの短い期間。
ええ、舌を戦いと略奪に染まった者たちを滅ぼすならばきっと戦いと略。
ええ、俺たちが使えるべきは。悪鬼董卓は必ず排除せねばならない存在。無論王院殿にも掛け合ってはみたのです。しかし
おや、急に饒舌になったね。幸達殿。ああ、なるほど。今日くらいは構わないんじゃないかな。それに寡黙な酔った幸達殿を
そして結局その時には尽力も虚しく董卓の兵に捕らえ牢の中で、そうこの方によくに酔いが覚めました。このような形で恩人と再会するとは。
もしや洛陽で幸達殿を救った御人というのを。私は純文尺。幸達殿とは血縁にあたります。以後どうかお知りおきを。 奉公だ。この2人とはつい先ほど収木の居城で出会ったばかりでね。牧羊にいるということはあなたも曹操殿に仕官したということ。おや、それは私たちは皆いずれ共に戦うことに。
長連を軽んじるな。惰性でやり過ごせる者と鷹をくくっているならば、軍紀に照らし厳正に処罰する。
いくらなんでもあんまりだなあ。あんたからも右近様に言ってくれ。こんなに厳しい訓練死人が出かねねってよ。
貴殿は確か曹操殿が呼び寄せたという。何か言いたいことがあるのなら言うがいい。気遣いは無用だ。私のやり方に異議を唱えるわけではないのだろう。この右分則は曹操殿より清州兵の長連と強化を任されている。
It's not my
彼らは
problem.
戦いに長けてはいるが、正式な訓練など一度たりと受けたことがない。戦の作法や情動どころか物の道理も分かっておらぬ。貴殿も夢鍛錬は怠るな。
Man, if you were in my place, you would die 1,000 times.
おかえりなさい、シラン殿。こっちもさっき戻ってきたところです。あちこち転戦してきたんでしょ。そちら黄金の放棄を皮切りに溜まっていた海が一気に吹き、世の中を変えるという。さてと、そういうわけで仕事の続きです。どうも今日はシラン殿の過去を探りに行きましょう。シラン殿と初めて会ったあの場所、あそこになら何か手がかりがあるかもしれません。
せっかく始めたこの店、戦で燃えちまったら泣くぞ俺。
That I was one people using magic in young parents, and I should mention thanks to Lord Cha Cha. I've been able to leave my disgraceful past behind and start a new life. I owe a great deal to him, but I will also never forget the one who taught us how to harness power of the ancients. The way you carry yourself, your aura, that otherworldliness about you, it all remind me of him. You two know each other, right? If you ever encounter him again somewhere, please tell him that we're grateful.
都はあちこち黒焦げらしい。むごいもんだ。
関羽様のあの日で。
平原国将がおいでになる。しばし待たれよ。誰も彼も賓客扱いとは困ったものだ。
すまないな。面食らってるな。
You got yourself
俺
some
も
new
どう
pair
に
of
もなれ
armor.
ないのだが。
一軍の大使となられたからにはふさわしき装い、ふさわしき振る舞いというものがござろう。
うん。平原国の将劉玄徳である。そなたの出資嬉しく思うぞ。
ああ、やめてくれやめてくれ。ムズムズする。
天下に武勇を轟かす翼徳のもだえる姿はなかなかに愉快だな。余興はこれくらいでいいだろう。さあ本題に入ろうか。今回とは言っても先
先に経緯を説明すべきだな。俺たちは高孫さん殿と共に自分のことながら昔よりはうまくやれていると思う。前世と言ってくれる者たちもいる。
それもこれも兄者の徳の賜物よ。その名声は今や
買いかぶりはよしてくれる。うまくやってこられたのは、そしてそんな恩人である高孫さん殿が劣勢に立たされているそうでな。
高孫さんのやつには世話になってるからな。受けた恩を忘れて天下のだが紀州という地盤を得た袁紹、連合軍に参じた時よりも力を、それに比べこちらは編成から間もない新政府。
勝てるかどうかはわからない。だが人に俺たち今
この辺りの治安も見違えるほど良くなったわね。
Yeah, let's increase our whatever.
さて、
Let's create gems. Let us dance again. Let's take a look at that. Should be bottom one. Yeah. Alright.
Two bodies lie on the ground because he should first regain his strength. The body is the foundation of cultivation, and if he could absorb spiritual energy, money wouldn't matter. A few minutes later, the boy was completely exhausted, and without spiritual power, the body couldn't handle it, so he had to forge his body from scratch. Then he receives a call from his friend, saying she wanted to talk about Wuju Mountain, mentioning that her friend said he was going there and asked if it wasn't better to go another day. Lin says it wasn't a problem and they could go anyway, so the girl says the bus would leave in the morning, so he shouldn't be late. The next day, the protagonist goes to the table for breakfast. Zixuan asks why he woke up early and if Yanhui hadn't asked to go out with him, but the boy remains silent. His cousin, in his thoughts, wonders why he wasn't responding and if he was planning something, saying he could continue eating like a beggar because his bus had arrived. Near the bus, Yanhui calls the boy, saying she was scared so they should get on quickly. Inside the bus, she says Lin has been different since she rejected him, mentioning that last night he pushed Zixuan while arguing with his father. Yanhui, in turn, says she always knew it wasn't a good idea to take Lin to Wuju Mountain, affirming that he was also going, and the other girl says he looks like a whale pacifier, so he wouldn't be able to climb. Then the protagonist's friend appears, saying they were in the same class and shouldn't talk about him like that. The girl thinks she didn't expect Lin to come, but he wasn't afraid of Yanhui, so she would stay with him so he wouldn't feel alone. Then Lin appears on the bus. While going to his seat, Yanhui stops the protagonist, asking why he pushed Zixuan. Interfering in the matter, the protagonist's friend says it must be a misunderstanding because Lin was a calm person, calling the boy to the front of the bus because it had a beautiful view. At the front of the bus, she asks the driver to stop at the next stop to pick up another person. The protagonist, in turn, hopes that when they reach Wuju Mountain, he wouldn't be disappointed. Looking to the side, he notices a girl riding a motorcycle, stopping the motorcycle in front of the bus. Suddenly, the bus is forced to brake. Removing the helmet, it was Yutang. The protagonist's friend gets nervous, fearing she stopped the bus to go after Lin Mo. Leaving her seat, she says she would talk to her. Questioning what she was doing there, Yutang says she was looking for that fat boy. Observing Lin, the girl mentions that if it weren't for his size, she would never have noticed him. Then everyone starts laughing at the protagonist. Yutang says he shouldn't go to Wuju Mountain and that it was better to go with her to play video games, and if he did that, she could make his wife return to the relationship. But the boy didn't want to know about it, asking her to leave him alone. Then Yutang asks if she was bothering him, thinking that if it weren't for him, she would never have lost even once in her life, questioning if he would go with her or not. Then Lin seems surprised, noticing that the girl's necklace had a bit of aura, thinking that his refining technique was a bit poor, but that was something difficult to craft in that world, wondering if cultivators still existed, saying he would play with her after climbing the mountain. Then the protagonist's friend suggests they all go to the mountain. Yutang asks if Lin was really willing to climb that place. It seems he wasn't popular and was fat, so she would watch him try to climb that mountain. Meanwhile, another guy appears saying he has a seat next to him, suggesting she sit beside him. But the girl doesn't care and calls one of her friends to take care of her motorcycle, asking if Lin had that game because she wanted to play with him now. However, the protagonist says that if he won, he wanted something in return. Accepting the offer, Yutang says that if she lost, he would have to be her servant forever, ignoring another guy while talking to Lin. Then the other man asks Zixuan if Lin was good at games and why Yutang insisted on playing with him. Zixuan, in turn, thinks he has no idea what's going on and the protagonist is a nuisance. Back to Lin, the boy was playing that game with Yutang again. Noticing an opening, he prepares an attack. Yutang is surprised because he was attacking at high speed. Taking the hit head-on, the system informs that Momo Baby is the winner. Outside the game, Yutang still can't believe she lost, asking how he managed to have such incredible precision. But the protagonist says every move of his was calculated, and that game is very easy. Then the girl thinks he was a genius, but little did she know he used his cultivation to stimulate his brain. Since Lin had won, he should ask for what he wanted. Lin, in turn, asks for 10,000 in cash. Yufeng asks if that was all because she could make his ex-fiancé come back to him, and if he was willing, he should become her training partner from today. Ignoring the girl, Lin still asks for the transfer, thinking he had secured the money to forge that body. Taking out her phone, Yutang makes the transfer. Moreover, she adds her phone number, so he should answer if she called. But he shouldn't call her or give her number to anyone. The protagonist thinks that even as an emperor, he didn't have such arrogance as hers. Standing up from the chair, the girl says there was very little space, ordering Yanhui to move to the front, making the girl nervous, thinking she was doing that after so much effort to sit next to Zixuan. Standing up, Yutang tells her to hurry up. Yanhui thinks about scolding her sister but can't do it in front of everyone. Then Zixuan says that Lin wanted to say something to her so she should see what it was. Standing up, the girl goes towards the protagonist. In his thoughts, the boy is happy because he could sit next to Yutang. Trying to introduce himself to the girl, Zixuan only gets a sharp rebuke from Yutang, telling him to shut up, thinking that if she knew that boy was so insufferable and wore so much perfume, she would have preferred to sit with the protagonist. Arriving at Wuju Mountain, the students are surprised by how high the place is. Then the protagonist's friend tells everyone to follow her and not lag behind. However, she would have preferred to sit left it with the protagonist. Arriving at Wuju Mountain, the students are surprised by how high the place is. Then the protagonist's friend tells everyone to follow her and not lag behind. Half an hour later, Lin Mo, observing those boys, thinks they were much worse off than he was. When he managed to recover his powers, he would punish them every day for centuries. The protagonist's friend, noticing that no one was there to help him, thinks she couldn't assist him because if someone saw her with him, she might get strange looks. 20 minutes later, Lin Mo was still climbing the mountain, thinking he couldn't go any further because he had the least endurance in the group. Those boys seemed delicate, but were actually quite fit. Noticing that Lin couldn't continue, his friend thinks that since she brought him to that place, she should help him. Asking if the boy needed help, but Lin Mo says she could go on her way, because he could still continue. Thinking that this exhaustion was nothing compared to the things he went through in his previous life. The protagonist's friend wonders why he was making such an effort for that, saying she would go ahead, and if he couldn't climb anymore, he could let her know. People in the background are surprised because the protagonist had already climbed halfway. The other boys, already exhausted, couldn't continue. While thinking about giving up, Lin Mo, determined, continues to climb. Near the top, the protagonist notices a group of people returning. The other girl is surprised because he managed to get there alone and was very resilient. The protagonist's friend, saying it was very high, suggests they go back and go to a restaurant. However, Lin says they could go because he would reach the top. Irritated, his friend questions if he wanted to die, but the other girl says to just let him go. 20 minutes later, the boy finally reaches the top of the mountain. Yutang, who was already at the top, is surprised that he actually managed to climb. But it was a pity that he lagged behind most of the time, and when he reached the top, the others had already returned, and he had been alone the whole time. Looking up, the boy observed the stars. Thinking that up there had a lot of ki, although it was not enough to recover his power, at least he could start training. With this, he would get ahead of that venerable demon. As long as he had the opportunity to train, no matter the time, he would always come back up there. Then Yutang touches his shoulder, asking what he was doing, and the protagonist says he was just looking at the view. The girl thinks he is very annoying and doesn't talk much, and the protagonist, in his thoughts, asserts that in his world, the girl thinks he is very annoying and doesn't talk much, and the protagonist, in his thoughts, asserts that in his world as an emperor, he would have killed her many times already. Then Yutang tells him to come down because that place was hers now. Lin mentions that he was very tired, so she should help him down. Yutang says she wouldn't bother him anymore that day, handing the protagonist a snack. From now on, he would be her companion, and since she was bored, she would go down first. Opening the wrapper, he realizes it was leftovers from the girl's snack, mentioning that in his previous life he had eaten many beast carcasses, so that was nothing. Sitting down to meditate, the boy thinks he should start by cleansing the marrow. Sometime later, it gets late. The protagonist's friend on the phone with him asks if the boy really wasn't coming back. Lin Mo says that place was pleasant, so he would stay during the holidays. Fiddling with his phone, he thinks he should notify his aunt. Calling her without any ceremony, he already informs her that he would be away for a few days during the holidays. Ending the call, the receptionist asks what he could do for the protagonist. Then the young man asks how much an individual room costs for 2 months, and the man says it was 8,000 yen. Thus, Lin Mo continued his training during the holidays, day after day, climbing the mountain non-stop. The training was rigorous, but the fruits would be worth it. Then 2 months pass, and the protagonist's friend says she was arriving and if his bags were ready. Thinking that she couldn't talk to him during the holidays, and because of that, Yutang was always bothering her. So she had to take him to Yutang no matter the circumstances. Meanwhile, Lin Mo looks at himself in the mirror, thinking that after 2 months, the spiritual energy in his body was still weak. Appearing like a complete Giga Chad, he says he should still continue being a mediocre student. Sometime later, the protagonist's friend says she finally managed to find him. But when she looks at the boy, she is surprised by his beauty, supposing she had mistaken the room, imagining having a family with that man. With a remorseful look, the protagonist notices the girl staring at him. Embarrassed, she starts to leave, thinking the protagonist must think she was a pervert. Then Lin asks where she was going because she wasn't mistaken. The girl, in turn, asks if he was a friend of Lin Mo, but he says he was Lin Mo. However, she doesn't believe his words, supposing they had the same name. But the protagonist says he had just lost some weight, asking why she was so surprised, although the boy had changed drastically. Everything about him was completely different. Grabbing the bags, Lin says they should go. Then the girl thinks that from his cold look and way of speaking, he was definitely Lin Mo, thinking she wasn't dreaming and the boy had changed a lot, affirming that it was worth not treating him badly in the past, asking him to carry her backpack. However, another girl appears, offering help to the protagonist. Quickly, his friend approaches the car, opening the door for the young man. Inside the car, car, she mentions that he now looked very handsome, asking if he had been climbing the mountain all this time. His efforts certainly paid off, and when Yanhui saw him now, she would regret breaking up with him. So now many girls would be kind to him, but he had to understand that it was all falsehood, so Lin asked her to just shut up. Afraid his friend wonders if the protagonist hated her for not climbing the mountain with him. If she had been kinder before, he might have fallen in love with her, and they would have a perfect love. However, there was still an opportunity because she was still the closest to Lin, saying that he must have been through a lot and that they should go out to eat something, but the boy just wanted to be taken home. Sometime later, the young man was already at his house, and his friend says she would see him in a few days. Then the other girl asks if she wasn't going to take the protagonist to see Yutang. But Yunshu says she wouldn't take him anymore, thinking she couldn't take a beautiful lamb to the wolf's den. The only thing she needed to do was use Lin's account to play. Then Lin Mo enters his house. The whole family is surprised by his appearance, asking who he was and how he had entered. But the boy says he is Lin Mo and had just lost weight. Even so, Zixuan doesn't believe it was him because even if he lost weight, he wouldn't be that handsome. Then his mother asks him to stop yelling, asking if the boy had had some surgery. The boy mentions that she had all his money, so he couldn't have done that, questioning if he would receive his allowance that semester. His aunt said she would cover all his expenses and also buy a new uniform. But if he did anything bad to his cousin or uncle again, she wouldn't give him another cent. Standing up, Lin says he was already satisfied, and his aunt thinks he really was the protagonist. The next day, the young man was in a car with his cousin going to school. Zixuan asks why the driver was driving slow. Standing up, Lin says he was already satisfied, and his aunt thinks he really was the protagonist. The next day, the young man was in a car with his cousin going to school. Zixuan asks why the driver was driving slower this time, so the girl says she would go faster, thinking she couldn't help but look at the protagonist because he was very handsome. So she just wanted to keep observing the boy. Then Lin gets out of the car. Everyone around is surprised by his beauty, wondering who that boy was. His cousin, envious, questions why Lin was drawing so much attention. Noticing that the girls were taking pictures of him, the young man thinks something wasn't right. Soon after, he enters his classroom. Heading to his seat, another girl wonders if he was a transfer student. Lin, in turn, thinks he had just lost weight, but just because of that, he was already a little better than normal. However, he usually wouldn't attract so much attention, wondering if it was because of his aura. At the classroom door, a commotion was happening. Yutang, holding the protagonist's friend, says she would give her 3 minutes to bring that fat boy to her, but Yunshu says there was no fat boy anymore. The girl mentions that she would regret it if she continued lying, so Yunshu says she would tell her where Lin was. Pointing to the protagonist, she says he was Lin who had lost weight over the holidays. Observing the boy, Yutang seems not to believe it. Furious, she says that guy could never be Lin, but Yunshu was telling the truth. The protagonist in turn says the girl wasn't lying, saying she'd be trained with him whenever she wanted and to meet after class. Then Yutang asks who he was. Again, Yunshu says he was Lin and had lost weight over the holidays while climbing Wuzhu Mountain. In her thoughts, Yutang wonders if it really was the boy, questioning if it really was that fat boy while the boy asks her not to call him that anymore. Noticing he had the same voice and behavior, she affirms that he really was Lin, saying it didn't matter if he was fat or thin because he should wait for her after class. Yunshu says it had been someone else who had played with her before and Lin had joined just to complete the group, so the protagonist wasn't very good at games. With a threatening look, Yutang observes her, asking if she dared to say that Lin didn't know how to play, mentioning that yesterday she had used Lin's account to try to deceive her, so she was the most arrogant person who tried to do that. While leaving, Yunshu asks for a chance to explain, thinking that now Yutang would never leave her alone. Two girls appear, asking how she knew it was Lin. Even if it was the boy, he couldn't have become so handsome, so he must have had some surgery. Then the teacher appears, asking everyone to take their seats because class was about to start, saying she was curious to know how their holidays were. However, she ends up being surprised, asking who that student in the back was. Yunshu, raising her hand, says it was Lin who had lost weight during the holidays. Surprised, the teacher says he had changed a lot and must have worked hard to achieve it, asking if the boy wanted to sit at the front that semester. Quickly, a girl responds no, mentioning that Yunshu had promised they would change places with her. Another says she had grown a lot during the holidays, so she should also go to the back. Yunshu thinks they were trying to take her seat but wouldn't let that happen. The teacher, asking them to stop arguing, says the first person to change places would be Yunshu. While two girls remove her from her seat, the protagonist's friend pleads to let her stay in her seat. Another guy asks Zixuan if Lin had had surgery to become so handsome, and the boy responds that there was no other way than that. The teacher says the odd numbers would stay in the same position and the evens would change with the adjacent ones, saying that Li Jiang would sit with Lin. The other girl asks if Jiang was really going to sit with the protagonist, then the girl says it's okay because she couldn't let Yunshu have him for herself. Looking at his classmate beside him, the young man notices that he was a bit chubby and quiet, so there would be no one to bother him. Yunshu, standing at the front, cries for losing her seat. Then Lin Mo stands up from his seat. A group of girls start flattering the young man, saying they would be exhausted if they had to climb the mountain every day, and another asks if he could give some advice to her brother. Yanshu thinks they are all fake because when Lin was fat, no one talked to him, saying that unlike them, she never treated the protagonist badly when they first met. Lin coldly asks them to get out of his way. Quickly, the girls make room. Another girl says that the protagonist looks very handsome with that attitude. Noticing Zixuan getting stressed, the girl mentions that he was jealous, but it wouldn't help because they preferred Lin. Back to the protagonist, the young man was in the cafeteria. A girl waves at him, saying he could sit in her place because she had to leave, but Lin declines the offer, thinking he wasn't sure if it was safe near those mortals, mentioning that the eyes of those women were nothing less than deceitful. In the background, Yan Hui questions, mentioning that the eyes of those women were nothing less than deceitful. In the background, Yan Hui questions if it was really the protagonist. Sixuan asks if she regretted breaking up with him now that he was handsome, and the girl responds that she wasn't that superficial. Another girl appears, saying she wanted to go after Lin Mo, asking if she could help her, mentioning that it didn't matter if he had surgery or not because she always liked him for his personality. Then Yan Hui calls her a hypocrite. Hearing what she said, she thinks hypocrisy was thinking that was surgery, and if she could get those beautiful legs of Lin's, she wouldn't care if they were fake or not, saying she would go after the boy alone. Meanwhile, Lin Mo was walking through the school. Then Yan Hui appears, saying she was there to apologize for everything, mentioning that it had been sudden for her, and she still didn't want to get married. Accepting the apology, the protagonist walks away. Asking Lin to wait, the young man questions if she had more to say, affirming that she really felt sorry for everything she had said. Lin continues to walk, making Yan Hui wonder why he was so cold, supposing she might have been the reason he changed so much. Outside the school, Lin Mo hopes no one is on the rooftop. While walking, he encounters the girl whose ribs he had broken, wondering if she wanted to steal his spot on the rooftop again. Looking back, the girl notices that Lin has been following her for some time, mentioning that he looked like the protagonist, but that man was more handsome. Then Lin walks past the girl, feeling relieved because she thought the young man would talk to her, questioning if he was also going to the rooftop. Catching up with the boy, she notices he was climbing the stairs. Quickly passing him, she heads to the front. Noticing that the girl was in a hurry, he wonders if she really wanted to steal his spot, questioning how a mere mortal wanted to do that. Their eyes meet, and each perceives the other's intention. Quickly, they start running to secure their places. The girl thinks the protagonist was very annoying, questioning if he shouldn't behave like a gentleman. Also, how could he run so fast, mentioning that she wanted to give him an advantage, but if she lost, it would be a disgrace for the women of that world. Meanwhile, a girl watches the commotion. Back to the two, the girl asks why Lin was running, and the young man asks the same of her. Then she questions why he wasn't running after her, but the young man says he would never do that. Irritated, the woman says not to talk to her like that. A boy like him who didn't care about ladies could never get married. Lin Mo wonders how an emperor could think about marriage, a man of high status from a generation of great emperors, responding that she wasn't kind either because she was fighting just for the rooftop. Arriving at the rooftop door, they block the entrance. Suddenly, they start fighting to see who gets there first. Lin, in turn, thinks he would have to use brute force to clear his path, which ends up with him grabbing the girl's chest. She ends up feeling embarrassed. The protagonist, also embarrassed, feels that sensation, quickly reaching the rooftop first, saying that from now on, that place belonged to him. The girl questions how he dared to do that and if he knew who she was, mentioning that just now he had done that. Saying he had touched her, the protagonist approaches her, giving a slap to the poor girl, affirming that she had touched him first, thinking that he almost forgot that men in that world were fragile and couldn't act carelessly. Then the girl calls the protagonist shameless. Taking out his phone, Lin says if she didn't leave, he would call the police. The girl, in turn, says she was already getting angry. Recording the woman, the young man asks her to say what she had said before, but then she seems to remember something, recalling that women who hit men in that world were despised, and if she were caught doing that, she wouldn't be able to attend that school anymore. Thinking that he had taken advantage of that to hit her, even if he said it to someone, it was certain that the one who would be believed was the protagonist, saying that this time he would leave, but next time he wouldn't lose, claiming that it was very complicated to deal with men. Lin thinks she was happy to have gotten out of that situation, mentioning that the girl was very annoying. Remembering that there was an update on the news from this morning, she grabs her phone. Looking at the news, she ends up surprised. The news reported numerous chickens on a farm that were suspected of being infected with a virus, which ended up turning them into dried corpses. Observing that chicken, Lin Mo seems to recognize it, remembering that the demon from before had a sword that would suck any creature that touched it down to the bones. But in her final battle, that sword had exploded, and then her own sword also exploded trying to protect her, sending her to that world. Wondering if that demon was really dead. Since to become immortal, Lin had to follow the path of heaven, but in exchange, she only had to kill people to gain her power. That's why she needed to investigate what was happening. Sometime later, it was already sunset. As Lin was leaving, the girls were still fawning over the protagonist. Yunshan appears, saying she would accompany him to Yutang's house, but Lin Mo says it's not necessary. Even so, the girl insists on going, mentioning that Yutang and her sister were very dangerous. She tells the story of a time when a boy was tricked by his classmates and ended up with a tragic fate, However, the boy thinks he doesn't want to go to that place, asking Yunshun not to get too close to him. But the girl says he's interpreting things wrong. Entering, she's surprised to ask if he wouldn't see Yutang again, and the boy says he has more important things to do. Yunshu questions if he didn't know that she had been looking for him all summer, and the young man says they would discuss that later. The girl, in turn, asks him not to worry because she would explain everything to Yutang the next day, remembering that if she helped him, Lin might end up thanking her. Meanwhile, the young man was in a car, thinking that the farm was outside the city, and if that demon was there, he would eliminate her even if it damaged his soul. Sometime later, Lin Mo arrives at the location, thinking that he still had little soul left, but it would be necessary to use it. He apparently starts to use some magic. Looking at a house, he notices demonic Kai, thinking that it was extremely strong, assuming that demon had really survived. Looking to the side, he notices someone approaching. A person says they had seen the protagonist from afar. Taking off a helmet, it was Yutang asking what he was doing in the middle of nowhere. Lin, for his part, wonders how she got there, thinking it couldn't be a coincidence meeting in the middle of nowhere. She says she called a taxi to take her home, but on the way, she realized it was taking her out of the city, so she decided to get out of the car. Irritated, the girl asks if he still thinks he's that ugly fat guy from before. Now that he's handsome, he'll meet plenty of girls who only think with their lower brains. Mentioning that handsome young men are the main targets when it comes to trafficking, she says he shouldn't forget to warn someone when he gets into trouble. Asking him to hold her helmet, she says she's going to call the police, asking if he remembers the car's license plate, but the boy replies that he doesn't. Then the girl says she's going to deliver some messages and will be right back. Lin, for his part, thinks that Yutang was just immortal, but could also track demonic energy. Then he realizes she has returned. Mentioning that losing weight was causing her problems, she asked him to hand over her helmet. Putting it on her head, she says she didn't want to get into trouble. However, she feels embarrassed, thinking that the boy was more handsome than those motorcyclists on the internet. Lin wonders if that was a protective helmet, and the girl thinks he really was handsome, questioning how she had that ridiculous idea, mentioning that it was her customized helmet, and if she broke it, she would give it as a prize to the mean girls, saying that it only gives her a headache. Looking where the girl was heading, he notices it was exactly where the demonic energy was. As he was worried, where an old woman saying she had a lot of the law, then to run when the girl was looking for. Quickly, Yutang pulls out a gun, saying she had a lot of courage not to run when she saw her. Desperately, the woman says she shouldn't place a prank because it was against the law. Then Yutang asks if she knew the demon cultivator's law, but the woman says she was just a chicken farmer. Stealthily, she draws a dagger from her sleeve. Yutang, perceiving the woman's intention, fires her weapon. With her arm bleeding, the woman begs not to be killed. The girl mentions she was a good actress, but would have to be better to deceive her, using a spell that turns her weapon into a sword. Even so, the woman insists she will over fighting chickens, but in the future, could be asks how she didn't notice this is on the demon Mo, stating that the result wouldn't thinks that sword had no effect. The girl thinks that energy was completely different from the demon cultivators she had encountered before, questioning what that creature was. In an instant, the monster advances on Yutang, where she magic in its fear against the wall, appears to defend the girl. Yutang orders him to leave. Quickly, the young man seems to use. Lin says it was not a giant aura who Lin really was, birth to heaven and earth, encompassing all things. Then the man seems surprised. With the master kneeling, Bell was heaven and earth and another place in Yutang. Then the man says the father of Tao had just reincarnated. Returning to the protagonist, the boy was just a fragment of the sword. Even so, it didn't mean to reveal the due now. Orders root was of the that war pain in his chest. Assuming he had overloaded mentioning he was very handsome, and that they would take him to a nice place, but Lin asks to let him go or they would regret it. Then the girl says he was acting tough, asking him to be, but his chest ends up encountering Go says he's showing a punch air. Meanwhile, his soul was damaged, he couldn't use his strength. Grabbing his face, the woman says he should obey her. Meanwhile, Yutang was the other woman where she ends up not that he should strike with all of his strength at their weak point. The boy, questioning what the vital point was, hears Yutang respond that it was the chest and asks if he didn't even know how to defend himself. Asks why he did. The girl says, telling him a past life much about it. However, that vehicle was very fast, wishing that with his sword he could go faster than that. In the dead of night, the two arrive at their destination. Calling him fat, she mentions that just a moment ago the boy was scared and the protagonist asks her not to call him that. Then Yutang says that before Lin didn't care when people called him that. In the middle of the conversation, they call him that. Then Yutang says that before Lin didn't care when people called him that. In the middle of the conversation, the girl remembers something, saying that the protagonist had deceived her again and left her waiting. But the boy says his family taught him he should go, that she had an emergency. Then her phone starts powerful stops at a needed to in turn, ignoring that if he continues heading to control his words and was trying to trouble with Yutang again. The boy thinks he needed to recover. Then Zixuan calls him, questioning if he was causing trouble with Yutang again. Yanhui, in turn, says the boy didn't know how to control his words and was trying to say that Yutang was a bit stressed. Lin, ignoring the two, continues heading towards his house. Inside his quarters, at least he got his peers, saying she wanted to talk to the because it wasn't just about appearance, but the more time she spends with her cousin, the more she realizes she liked the protagonist. That's why she wanted to apologize for everything she had. Cousin, the more she realizes she liked the protagonist. That's why she wanted to apologize for everything she had done, asking if his grandmother wouldn't want them to get married. Before she could continue, however, Lin closes the door. The girl, begging, asks him to believe her, saying they would get married. However, as Lin was an emperor, he didn't want to lower himself to that level, thinking that he thought the girl called to meditate the protagonist to eat more and more to the side, looking like a movie star. Meanwhile, the protagonist to her table, who, without any remorse, had questioned how he had lost weight, but he always ignored him. Observing the situation, Yanhui seems uneasy. Getting up from the table, she says she would call him as the girl since they were in the same class. Zixuan, irritated, asks why she would call him as the girl already knew he hated him. Reluctant, Yanhui asked the boy no more respect for him. In her arms, she wouldn't regret any protagonist, she didn't need to come back. However, the girl thinks that if she could have Lin Mo in her arms, she wouldn't regret all those women were disturbing him. Then Yutang calls the protagonist, ordering him to immediately go to her table. The boys, observing the commotion, first who would take Lin's attention. Yutang supposedly liked Lin. Yanhui, desperate and fat, looking to the side, he's stealing his plan to become very message to the. However, that woman was already after classing place, saying that before she arrived first, Lin should leave. Refusing to leave, the young man mentioned that he had won the race before, so that place belonged to him. The girl said she had let him win because he was a man, asking if he thought she would lose. Then the boy suggested they go downstairs to bet on another race to settle it once and for all. Irritated, the Empress said that the boy only knew how to run and asked if he had any other skill besides that because if he continued that way, he would never get married. Lin Mo in turn said while the girl seemed to be handling Lin won, it could be what he was thinking. Then the Empress asked anything. Sitting on the floor, the girl thought she had spent thousands of years to be able to fulfill any of her wishes even if he tried. Convinced, the girl thought she had spent thousands of years playing that game and her skills were of another level. Little did she know that the protagonist had also spent many years playing that game, known as one of the best in his world. About to start the game, still hadn't won. Lin wondered if that woman was a reincarnation of a player of that game. Sometime later, still hadn't matched, wasn't careful, she could lose. The boy said that if she didn't know what to do, she should give up. However, the Empress mentioned that classes were over, so he should feel proud to have reached that point and therefore should go home. Right after Lin's turn, couldn't stand the noise of that foam and she was about to get up. She felt a shock in her and felt Then Lin slapped his forehead. A moment later, the girl was completely embarrassed. Lin, in turn, felt very cozy since the girl thought it was already the second time he had hit her, and when her strength returned, she would make him regret it. But during the night, she would study tactics to win her match. Outside, this girl questioned why he didn't most of her time receive school playing games, and even so, had a high level of cultivation, questioning the reason for size. Staying skipping all classes. However, he said he was just sleeping, leaving the girl surprised. A while later, the house, Yutang asked him not to touch anything. The girl in brown Lin Mo thought that the only thing in that place about being in that asked if she intended to do something to him. Mocking the boy, she mentioned it was a good idea because now he wasn't fat anymore, and it wouldn't be a bad idea. Without any compassion, the boy struck her in the belly, ordering her not to touch him. Seeing the damage he had done, the young man thought he didn't know that martial art was so good because it could knock out a cultivator in seconds. Getting up, Yutang said she was just kidding, but the protagonist said he didn't like that. Irritated the way for everything he had done. Sometime later in the game, Lin Mo wins a round against the girl. Then he wins 2 more times. That cycle continued countless times without a single victory for the girl. With her head down, Yutang realizes she is losing 47-0. Standing up, the boy mentions he needs to go. Stealthily, but the young to place something under her table. Asking for one more game, Yutang says he could. Linmo responds that to life it begins to have to move, wondering where the boy had gone. Then she receives messages on her phone. She sees a photo of the dared take her Linmo to her. Then a purple crystal asks if she wanted a revenge accident. Looking at these, asks if that for brain helped it recover, saying it was those novels. Embarrassed, that creature thinks the woman had nothing, asks if that monster was a witch from those novels. One divine sword of the immortal thinking world that ended up shaps the proposal, asking for help to become immortal. At that moment, the monster orders her to open her mind, letting it merge into her body. Asking why she didn't feel any power, the spirit questions what she desired. Suddenly, the girl asks to be taught hypnosis, and the monster mentions there were countless skills like that. In her thoughts, Yanhui supposes that with that skill, Lin Mo would be entirely hers. Meanwhile, the protagonist is riding in a taxi, thinking he couldn't use his powers recklessly and that Yutang should reveal her secrets. Quickly, the boy seems to make a hand signal. At Yutang's house, that doll received a signal. Observing the girl, he notices she is playing. Questioning if Yutang was a fake cultivator, wondering how she reached that level. Furious, Yutang can't believe she lost to a stinky fat boy. Lin Mo, in turn, gets irritated with the girl's words, mentioning that now he will crush her in all games. Then Yutang remembers she has something to do. Watching her leave the room, she says that it will work. Was going. In a closet, there are numerous combat weapons. The protagonist thinks that even if all that was of low quality, they were still hard to get in this world. Starting to run, the doll jumps onto the girl's clothes, thinking that this time what shampoo the protagonist used because it was very fragrant inside the building. Thinking she should find out what shampoo the protagonist used because it raised their glasses to celebrate. Taking the Mustang sits and declares that the newlyweds his drinks, asks if he was very talking, comes desperate had been fulfilled that easy. At that moment, dodging the ground, desperate, his bride, she thanked the girl. And in a matter of seconds, he apologized to the woman because he would never see her again, mentioning that this form was a stupid way to die. Returning to human form, his wife ran into him and said she would kill women, turning them into slaves, saying she was just doing her job and it was nothing personal. Using a Yutang says she had them forget everything they had witnessed, take care of the rest. Shape-shifting fox from the soul reincarnation, Foxman starts entering, starts running desperately. Object completely changes, moves towards the doll, which has its hands crossed and ends up one star protect revenge but regret the fox he doesn't want desires to live. Our purpose. Thus, the warns him that he will give him a new life, and in exchange, he must serve him for 10 years. Thus, the small one opens his purple eyes, revealing an adorable appearance now of a young foxman with Xiu has never heard, recognizing his knees and expressing great gratitude for the mission in this world. The fox promptly agrees and asks small apprentice they are ordinary practitioner would not be able to join a sect without connections or background. Everyone is taken in by the clans, but only to be used as furnaces and eventually destroyed for cultivation. Our protagonist realizes that this has become an evil cultivation practice, which the small one confirms. He has also, to which this is 10 years proud, he never nervous, to which the protagonist agrees but instructs him never to reveal himself. Completely proud, he never does not know. Quickly, the young man shouts and asks to visit his beloved during these 10 years of service, to which the protagonist agrees with his master and accepts that it is very easy to please the immortals. But the next day, he ends up being impressed while inside a backpack. He realizes that his master is actually someone completely unexpected. Being an ordinary high school student is incredibly popular. If he were a woman, he would also be hitting on our protagonist. But completely person, he thinks that if he were a woman, since he can't go a minute without thinking about illicit things. Soon, our protagonist wonders if it's from his favorite, an annoying friend of his named Song Yunshu. His ex to Yan was her. Hero is her fiancé. He prepares the boy to stop. Our protagonist is impressed that his cousin couldn't even manage to slap a woman. The girl says she will only say this once and ends up stating that she will punish him if he continues bothering her, leaving the girl alone. She says that if anyone bothers him, he can the protagonist, Cynthia. A blue-haired there a bunch of catches calling out Lin Mo to provoke and therefore tells Yutang then she will give him a beating. But with extreme brutality, the blonde says that if the protagonist annoys her, then she will give him a beating. Soon, anger appears on our hero's face. Thus, he leaves the years of cultivation and thinks he's still like Zhao Yutang. The blue-haired one just says to ignore him. Furious, the girl asks if the boy really complained about her, but the blue-haired one just says to ignore it since she can't hit a boy. She decides to forget about the fat guy and then starts thinking about the girl since she's been eating a pastry, tells him to hurry. Our protagonist notices the immense hostility and reflects that she must be angry about the previous day. He sits down and then makes his first move in the game. She knew that our protagonist would make things difficult for her, but still she had already thought of a solution before any of this happened. Impressed, he admits that the girl is really good at this game. But suddenly his stomach lets out a hungry growl. With the bag in hand, he stares at her with a somewhat blank look. Then he opens it, revealing a lunchbox inside. He ends up breaking his chopsticks to start eating. The other one assumes that this is a matter of respect as he is eating instead of playing, but our protagonist excuses himself, saying it's lunchtime. She thinks that if he keeps this up, soon enough he'll be fat again. But soon a question arises about the fat guy who was here on the terrace. Our protagonist says he has never seen anyone of that profile around. Angry, she admits that just thinking about that boy makes her ribs ache because of his weight. But her expression quickly changes to surprise when she sees something on her phone. It's a picture of our protagonist being posted in the girls' group, thus realizing that our protagonist was, in fact, the fat guy she had known before. With red eyes, she says she asked a question, recalling and showing the protagonist's picture, questioning if he truly doesn't know this person from the phone. With extreme shamelessness, the protagonist says he has never seen someone so fat, to which the girl gets irritated, saying Lin Mo is a terrible liar. But she understands that he doesn't want to talk about the past, so she says he doesn't need to worry since she didn't ask for that reason. Soon, she starts rummaging through her bag, revealing that she washed his blazer, thinking it might not fit him, and he collects the garment while remaining completely stunned. Quickly, the young woman, few people are his equal, but she was one of the few. This way leaves the protagonist in silence. Quickly and with conviction, he ends up calling her, saying it would be better to have a best of 3 and decide a winner. With a cheerful smile, she accepts his proposal and then reveals her name as Han Xinyi. Our protagonist is surprised by this name, at first astonished that he is so flex a little. His small name is Han Xinyi. Our protagonist is surprised by this name at first, but then reflects a little. His small fox ends up jumping out of his bag in surprise. It's astonished that he is so powerful that all the women throw themselves at his feet. But our protagonist reveals he has a question, which is about where the resources for his demonic cultivation come from. The little one promptly replies that they come from the Dark Gate network. The items are protected by the is his mad hand flies, even meet towards him back in his ritual, ends up calling him by the fat guy, not to pretend he didn't see her. Reveals that Yanhui is not his ex-girlfriend and suggests that he could go for a motorcycle ride with her. And Sel asks to go to the motor now with her precious Lin Mo. A shadowy voice ends up asking why she doesn't hypnotize him. But the younger one reveals that she wants the protagonist to willingly notices the words of a woman. Blushing and confused. In a suggestive manner, the protagonist smiles. She says he's too naive for believing the words of a woman. In a broadly suggestive manner, the protagonist asks if she's really interested in him, leaving her blushing and confused. The motorcycle comes to a sudden skid stop. With a red face, she asks if she hasn't made it clear enough that she isn't interested in him, to which the protagonist asks if she really doesn't want him. The girl tries to refuse with all her might, and the protagonist just accepts, saying that they're just colleagues, so she shouldn't get too involved with him. Yude ends up revealing that there's a line of people wanting to be her boyfriend, and even so, if it weren't for the games, she would have never looked at the protagonist. In our young protagonist's pocket, the small fox thinks his master is truly surprising. Soon, sometime later, we can see our dear protagonist's house. He thinks about the Dark Gate network. Soon after, he calls for his small Dark network as quick. Small fox or even up on a website with highly suggestive content. It's a site for renting some night ladies, or even books with explicit and adult content. Lin Mo then that he just needs a spiritual weapon from the immortal ginseng immortal tries to convince him to poor or something to rich older women. Bo the stress, his small companion still tries to convince him to sell his photos to rich older women. Bo the stress hands. Our protagonist then asks for the money the small fox has, but the little one ends up saying he only has 30,000 and decides to question if his master really something else quality. Tells him not to worry about that with Lin Mo asks if him and truly a Fata clan delivery service 5-star rated levels even the small white great family young agility. He thinks it's time and he swears quality talismans. Moreover, it's a pit of stones. He is quick to him that they are something really exhausting. Until suddenly she sees the listing for the high quality talisman along with the invisibility effect, which seems quite convincing. She assumes it's a good time since she doesn't know this demon, and it's better to be prepared to watch him if necessary. Our protagonist thinks that a spiritual stone might be useful and moreover, say at school boys. Inside, end up insulting him and asking how he dares to disguise himself to get the girl's attention, but that on the inside, he's still the same trash. Says she's enjoying this hypnosis more since it's giving her an unbelievable way, which irritates the people in front of him. The boys, unconvinced, ask if Lin Mo has lost his will to live and then decide that they will kill him at that very moment. But before he could hurl more against the wall, and his antagonist glanced his to the side, thinks this is in front of her. Questions what's going on, punched his nose. After the young woman questions if that's really true since there's no way of knowing if the boy is lying. Soon after, the protagonist is okay and thanks her and asks him to this is truly but promptly the black-haired girl holds her hand. With a confident tone, she says that this is truly detestable as a woman should not take advantage of a defenseless man. With a malicious and angry expression, the ex-girlfriend tells her to stay away and not meddle in her affair. He realizes she's losing control doesn't work on a hero. The demon accompanying her informs her not to use magic for the rest of the day as he has a bad feeling. The black-haired girl states that she heard the younger, But the girl isn't protagonist. The protagonist is shown two spirit. Our protagonist stones and a lot of money is from the means that there's no rework all pops up place. Even so, this is necessary as the site and the delivery. His small fox is perplexed, glasses in cat quality of months. Two more trucks is from people this were genuinely praising whoever the master was who created these two types of talismans. Linmo thinks that this world is truly backward in terms of cultivation, and it's strange that they get excited over a simple first-level talisman. Quickly, his small for the protagonist's talisman asks if they've gone mad. They then question how a first-level talisman can cost more than 3 million. Quickly, someone on the microphone states that the invisibility talisman that was sold earlier wasn't ordinary, and that's why they want to find out about the manufacturer. In the blonde girl's house, she looks at her state-of-the-art computer. Quickly, she starts getting even more irritated as she sees something in front of her. Yutang then clicks her mouse once, thus adding another million to the talisman auction. Our protagonist simply watches the prices rise with his arms crossed. He had to cover his small companion's mouth so he wouldn't cause any disturbance. Quickly, the bid reached a peak of 15 million in cash. The comments are from people wanting to make an offer to the protagonist and especially asking if they can meet. Our young hero realizes that this is all dangerous, so he decides to disappear for a while since all the cultivators in this world will probably come after him. But at least he'll get something good out of it and decides to check on the progress of the blonde girl who was betting in the auction. Sometime later, we see the girl's house. Our protagonist notices that she's still investigating the disappearance of the boys. All of them being virgins, and it seems to have something to do with the Demon King. Our boy feels a bit unconscious on her computer screen and ends up slamming the table, saying to search the interval, so be something. Looking for tips, something more. Things like having a new living after sick, long legs, and even removing love handles. Our dear Yutang fat guy feels she can't continue living after this disgusting person. Sometime later on screen, she admits that not even the fat guy is as unbearable as this disgusting person. Atrocious surgery and facial, so be something. Which is for eccentric. Hey, our protagonist of Yang he'll need to create a formation, and the most powerful ones are the demonic ones. Warns him not to accidentally fall, to which he just smiles. Everything secret. It's the brown-haired girl who is speak with a dark expression on her face, but Han Sini, who is with the protagonist, tells her to stop bothering him. Then the younger brown-haired girl, Higan turns and tells the girl to just wait, and she'll see her later as night falls and admits that she underestimated our friend's house. She thinks she should have pursued him from the very beginning, but she assumes that this time he will belong to her completely, without any hesitation. With a psychotic expression, the curse spreads through the air sleep, but companion Waker formed from his energy, managed wondering what could make. And we see our tells him that tonight he becomes even more anxious for the night to arrive. But then she takes on a psychotic expression, thinking she has successfully hypnotized Linmo and assumes he will be obedient. Who tried to hypnotize him the previous night. It is then a small doll as a smile at our protagonist. We then see him later in the clash just vanish, attached to her. She then incinerates it with her demonic purple flames. Her demon tells her she's pathetic for not noticing she was being watched. With sweat on her informs her that whoever it is, it doesn't matter, as she cannot let fucking out think invaders in this relations are cursed. It varies. The blonde girl quickly stops her looking both. With empty eyes, the boy just stands up, leaving her confused in. The blonde one friend's house tonight because she's expecting him for a special night. She is shocked, realizes something, leaving her completely stunned. Spell. She draws a star vanished before, questions whether the person who cast this spell a heavy matterly been pretending, and that in question matters. Any chance, Lin Mo had met up with his ex-girlfriend. He admits he did, but asks what it matters, as she's going to see her fiancé. Completely flustered, the girl says that he had appeared in front of her and was hit by her motorcycle, so he should follow her to the hospital. Yutang wonders how our hero can say that after being hit, but she says she doesn't want to, and if she feels guilty, she can pay his medical expenses later. The girl grabs him by the collar, leaving him completely agonized. She then rubs a piece of paper in his face, saying she'll write him a check because she doesn't want to worry about a lawsuit from him in the future. She tells him to spend it on whatever he wants but warns him not to use it against her in the future or he will regret it. Our dear Lin Mo wonders if writing a few thousand zeros will be enough to exchange for a few hundred spiritual storages. The girl then speeds off on her motorcycle. Yudeng tells someone over her helmet communicator that she needs all the information on the protagonist's ex-girlfriend as she's a suspect, which the person confirms. Soon, she arrives at the house of the girl who was once interested in our protagonist. Removing her helmet gracefully, she extends her hand, which bears a special ring. Then she releases her magical sword at once. She proceeds to make dozens of cuts on the doorknob to open the door. The cuts are so precise that the door itself falls, but the doorknob remains attached in the shape of the door. She walks in, seeing some family photos. They don't appear to be of her family, but rather of two boys who seem to be her friends. She then reaches the protagonist's ex-girlfriend's room. Realizing she's completely obsessed with thousands of photos of the protagonist pinned to her wall, Shigu notices several manuals about our protagonist and decides to see the protagonist pinned to her wall. Shigu notices several manuals about our protagonist and decides to see what they are. Curiously reading, she flips through the pages slowly. Her face begins to turn red from the indecency of the contents. She assumes that everything there is very perverted and decides to put an end to it, until her communicator informs her of a new problem. It says that Yanhui has disappeared suddenly and suspiciously. The girl realizes that based on the young woman's plans, it's likely she has something to do with the missing persons cases, and she must inform the team to issue a missing person alert. She then thinks that Yanhui is extremely clever for having devised such a precise plan in such a short time. At the protagonist's house, Mike fully envelops the place. He starts to think he's seen enough, and it's easy to imagine that his ex-girlfriend has some connection with the venerable demon, which is why the Phoenix group must prioritize her. Suddenly, a sound catches our protagonist's attention. It's his cousin, who asks if he's seen the news recently. Promptly, our boy opens the door in a somewhat receptive manner. And quickly, the purple-haired boy informs him that Yanhui is being sought, but our protagonist says he knows nothing as he no longer intends to approach her. Lin ends the conversation with the boy when he is met with a strong slam of the door. The young man insists that he at least check the news happening right at this moment. Our protagonist sees that Yanhui from the Fengsheng Institute is suspected of an abuse case against a young man and is being sought nationwide. He thinks the search team is truly efficient, but there is still no information on the girl. The small fox thinks that this woman is really cruel and extremely foolish for daring to mess with his master. Lin Mo knows that if the venerable demon wants to absorb the yang power of a young man, he will end up forming a well-organized formation, primarily of evil origin. Quickly, our young protagonist crouches down and starts rummaging through a box. The small white fox wonders what his master is searching for until he sees a glimmer in his gestures. Becoming even more confused, the small fox realizes that what he grabbed are just some seemingly ordinary wooden boards. Our hero lets out a tired sigh. He then channels all of his energy into the two boards at once. They begin to disassemble and reform into a shape that suits his needs. It becomes a kind of manual compass made entirely of wood. The small fox is astonished that he managed to create such an ancient oriental compass in such a short time. Our boy thinks that, with the venerable demon's ability, it will be impossible for the Phoenix group to find her. That is, unless they use this compass to locate the malignant energy. Our young protagonist begins merging the two boards at energy after merge that serves as truly needle to point the direction begins to move. The small servant of our hero realizes that his master is truly powerful, having made a simple the little spirit comes that it is used to locate place. Not to say him to open. With his phone in hand, not to do anything, asks what she's doing in a place like that, to which the girl tells him not to say nonsense and asks where he was injured. Our hero thinks that Yutang is suspicious of him, but by sheer luck he hasn't healed yet, so the injuries and scars are still on his body. He shows her his wound on his arm and also reveals another on his leg. Quickly, the girl lifts his pant leg in an indecent manner, revealing the minor wound. Completely flustered, the girl lifts his pant leg, shows her his wound on his manner, revealing the minor wound. Completely flustered and embarrassed, he asks what she's doing, but Tanner, revealing the minor wound. They're on the wounds. Otherwise, she will be with the most beautiful legs she has ever seen. She doesn't. She thinks that the line that his master offered his arm, and she went straight for his legs, clearly taking it and would come over for such a trivial reason. But the girl reveals she told him. The boy admits he doesn't remember, so she's leaving, but the boy wonders why she doesn't exit through the door. Soon, to help her, Lin Mo, being completely cautious, asks her to wait. Embarrassment, having seen something to act as bait to help her if she wants. Quickly, the girl blushes with embarrassment, having seen something seemingly indecent, that being the well-defined chest of our boy, visible due to his shirt. She leaps from the balcony. saying she will accept his offer. But our protagonist notices she agreed a bit too quickly. The next day, the sun rises a completely worried being girl arrives. All the girls quickly move. His name. He promptly introduces himself as Shen Li. Shen catches attention. The girls persuade him to. Man reveals that he transferred to this school to investigate the case of He Yanhui, but even so, he did not expect to encounter such a beauty. But suddenly, he is surprised to see that she has her foot on the door. She then delivers the school grounds as he shouldn't go outside before she does. Immediately after, she on the door. She then delivers a powerful kick that rips the door from its hinges. Immediately after, the haired boy is completely bewildered by this behavior and begins calculating the odds of her being completely crazy despite her beauty. After school, as the sun begins to set, our protagonist leaves the premises, still follow her. The two begin walking down the school. He states that he's already healed, and if she touches his leg again, they'll have to retaliate and restrain her until the police reveals that she has a police relative who found a diary about how to take care of our protagonist in He Yanhui's house, which is clearly a lie. Even though the boy has read it before, taken to the school's infirmary. The haired boy is completely bewildered by this behavior and begins